Hello, and thanks for tuning in tonight to Answers for the Paranormal for Sunday, May the 22nd, 2016. My name is Bill Posey. I'm your host tonight, and on the line with me over in his office in Horsham, Pennsylvania, my co-host Joe Marodi. How's it going tonight, Joe?
It's going great, Bill. And my office is now, as I disclosed to you a bit earlier, is in the basement of my home. It's moved from the Wawa convenience store about a mile from my house to my bedroom. And now, as a result of some recent, let's say, renovations, I'm now in my basement. So I'm going underground, and it's very comfortable to me. Although being in a twin house where my neighbors are adjacent to this house, I hope that I don't get too carried away where the police will be called out. But if that happens, then, I'll deal with
it. Well, we'll hope that doesn't happen tonight, brother, because we have a lot to cover tonight.
We really do, yeah.
Yeah. So, Joe, this show's been how long now? Over a month in the making, where you had started compiling some stories, news stories that were affecting our culture, and it just started to grow almost daily as more and more came out. So we decided that we were going to step outside of the paranormal genre where we usually broadcast and addressed some of these news stories in our culture. So that's why we've titled the broadcast tonight, Consuming Today's Propaganda. And Joe, you want to touch on that just for a little bit, why you came up with that as the title for tonight?
Yeah, Consuming Today's Propaganda, ? You have to ask yourself, what am I hearing when I listen to the news? Whether it's on television or it's on the radio, or it's in print, or it's on the internet. You have to employ some scrutiny when you consume today's media. You have to ask yourself, is it propaganda or is it real? And that is why we do what we do, Bill.
Yeah.
We have always established at the very outset that we come at the news from a biblical perspective, and we give our insights as we believe the Holy Spirit leads us to give them. And what we always warn people who are listening to our program is that you cannot believe, and this is nothing new, Bill, really, you cannot believe everything that you see or hear. So the title of tonight's program is as a result of what we believe to be a massive propaganda program that has been underway for, you fill in the blank, X amount of years or decades. The answer to that really is irrelevant. It is what is really crucial to understand is that the propaganda machine has been underway for a significant amount of time to bring us to the point where we have arrived at today, that you have to question everything that you see and hear. So as we go from day to day, Bill, you and I personally, and also those who are doing the same sorts of investigative, employing the same sorts of investigative means that we are, you
Naturals Indoor.
Sorry about that, Joe.
No, it's not a problem. As long as it, as long as it doesn't continue.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So we go from day to day. We hear the news. When we turn on the television, we see and we hear the same thing that everybody else does.
Yeah.
When we turn on the radio, when we turn on the internet, when we open up the folded newspaper, we see and hear the same things, news stories that everyone else does. The difference is that we, as Bible-believing Christians, scrutinize everything that we see and hear, and it is filtered through the Holy Spirit. This is where we are coming from. So we have to question everything that we see and hear, understanding that from the Scriptures, we're told that this is Satan's world, that he's the prince of the power of the air, that he controls all things, and understandably, God is allowing it for his purposes.
Yeah.
It's not always going to be this way, but that's the way it is now. So when you understand that this is Satan's world, and I'm not going to go into the Scriptures right now to describe that, we've done that in the past. When you understand that this is Satan's world, you understand that all of the news that is coming to you most likely is from a satanic source. And I submit to all those who are listening that all of the news that you listen to and you read is of a satanic source. Now, they will mix in, at times, true stories, and that is to confuse the audience. I understand that, and I know how that works. But propaganda has its ultimate goal to transform the minds of those listening and consuming what they see and hear. And so from day to day, we hear stories through various means that pique our interest. And as we go through the next 2 or 3 programs, Bill, certainly tonight, we're going to highlight some of those areas that people not necessarily are aware of how they are being conditioned to think. Mm-hmm. So we're going to go through these issues one by one, and we're going to talk about them, and we're going to digest them, and we're going to discuss how they are affecting us as a society, as a country, and as the world, because this is affecting policy. We're going to see that. It has already affected policy. It has become law in some instances. So there is a lot to really get into. There's a lot of meat and there's a lot of potatoes that are before us for digesting. And the difference between us and other outlets, even on the internet, is that we really get into the dotting of the I's and the crosses of the T's in all of these of all of these issues, whereas basically, without a doubt, we're in a news bite cycle right now, where a story will come up and they will give you the quick highlights, the quick hits, but they will not sit around and discuss what is really behind the stories. And even if they do, Bill, there really is an agenda behind that. And we're not going to hide the fact that there is an agenda behind what we do. But the agenda behind what we do really is to honor the God of the Bible and our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ in all that we say, do, and think. Do we make mistakes? We do. We're not infallible. But no one can ever question the sincerity of what we do. We come at it, today's news, yesterday's news, today's news, and tomorrow's news from a biblical perspective and a genuine desire to understand what is going on behind these stories, why they're happening, and what ultimately all of these stories are leading to. Because we believe, Bill, that all of these are under the umbrella of an agenda that has been set in motion who knows when, but we're in the middle of it right now, and there's a storm that is brewing on the horizon, and we can't imagine what we're about to face. So we want those who listen to us to be prepared to, not turn on their televisions and have their jaws drop. We want people to be prepared for really what we believe is the inevitable. What we're in the middle of right now is really earth-shaking, and the events that are taking place right now are preparing for something even greater than that. So,
yeah.
As we go forth from here, Bill, what we're going to try to do is look at these stories that in and of themselves look small, but when you put them all together and you understand that they're all coming from the devil, they're spectacular and they're worth digesting and discussing to whatever degree it needs to be done.
Right. Well, Joe, as I was looking over the topics that you had emailed to me earlier today, and there were 15 of them altogether that we're going to touch on. And, as you say, that whatever news we hear, we have to understand that there is propaganda behind it. And I guess that's been going on for quite a while.
Right.
But as I look at how you've kind of highlighted what the subject matter was going to be for each one of these 15 news stories that we're going to touch on, I get a picture of an agenda that's beginning to narrow in on a cause, and we're going to touch on that as we go through all of these, and I think that our listeners are going to catch on to what this cause is and the reason that this propaganda is being perpetuated right now in the news media. So as we go through these, Joe, we can comment a little more about just what you're saying, the satanic drive that's behind each one of these, and and we can point out in particular what is going on as far as he is involved.
Right. Yeah, I think what you said is a key element, is made perhaps the key element to what we're doing, Bill, because you mentioned the phrase, you mentioned the cause behind all of these stories that we're going to touch on over the next 2 or 3 broadcasts. And I think that the cause is to get people thinking the same way. It is to get people in the same way that the God of the Bible that we honor, Jesus Christ, calls all people to think like God thinks and to agree with God, because God is the source of all righteousness, and we can find this in all of Scripture. The devil also has his way of thinking, which is the complete antithesis of the way that God thinks. And the cause, as you mentioned, Bill, is to get people to think. You're either going to think as God thinks and agree with God and obey God, or you're going to think along the same lines as Satan thinks and agree with Satan and obey Satan. And that is the cause that you mentioned, Bill. And that is why we're going to, some of the stories that we're going to highlight, people might react by saying, well, how is this satanic? What is this all about? Well, a lot of it, what we're going to be getting into, Bill, is how government functions. Right. And how evil government is presently. and how government was established by God to punish evildoers. But over the course of who knows how many years, government has been usurped by the devil and is now a source of evil, perhaps the source of evil, and is perhaps the chief means of operation through whom which the devil works. So, as we highlight some of these areas, it may be a bit curious to those listening. Well, how is this satanic or whatever? But I think at the end of all of this, Bill, at the end of the 2 or 3 programs that we're going to produce, they'll be able to look back and say, yeah, I think I see what those guys are saying. Hopefully, I think that they will be able to see that.
Yeah, I agree. All right, Joe, you want to get right into the subject matter for tonight?
I do want to get right into the subject matter, and the first order of business, Bill, is let me first give a little bit of a brief background of what our first story involves. You and I have been sports fans for decades, Bill, and as hard as it has become lately to be a sports fan, we often refer back to the times that we were children and we had heroes and we played out those baseball games and football games and hockey games in our own yards and in our own neighborhoods, and we have fond memories of them. They were very innocent times to us, and as we look back, truly, if you do a research, they were very innocent. They were very untainted times where sports was sports, and people could resort to them as a way of relaxing themselves and a form of entertainment and diversion from perhaps the stresses that entail all of our work lives. But unfortunately today, what we are witnessing before our very eyes are deceptions that are inherent in today's sports realm and sports world. And one of those deceptions is how military has taken over a very large part of the sports arena that we've become familiar with. I can personally attest to the times that I would get together with family to watch Eagles games, our local football team, the Philadelphia Eagles, and we would get ready to watch a football game, and inevitably there would be a military exercise of some sort, and this is a somewhat recent phenomenon.
Yeah.
But it is something that has been growing. And I would comment to those watching with me, I came here really to watch a football game. I didn't come here to honor the military. I didn't come here to think about anything military related. I came here on a Sunday to watch my Philadelphia football team play another NFL football team. I didn't want to have any military involvement. That's not why. If I wanted to do that, I would have, Googled military exercises in the area, and I would have gone there if I wanted to honor the military. I don't want to do that, and I'm not going to get into why I don't want to do that right now. But increasingly, over the last 5 years, perhaps longer, I've had to sit through military flyovers. I've had to sit through military gun firings at football games. honoring a local hero, quote unquote.
Mm-hmm.
So it has really gotten to the point where, you know what? If the game starts at 1:30, I'll be there at 1:30 because I don't want to see all of the military crap that is going on for 15 minutes or a half an hour before the game. I don't want to see it. And you know what? I never knew. I never put two and two together. Recently, as a result of being a frequenter to the memory hole blog of Jim Tracy's, and I'll get into that a little bit later. I've come to understand why this is, Bill. I'm going to read from, and I don't know how much people read anymore, Bill.
Mm-hmm.
I still like to read. I like to read so much that I actually see a story on the internet and I print it out because I don't want to read it electronically because it just bothers me to look at a screen. Maybe that's just me. But I print it out and I read it at my leisure. So a number of these stories, maybe even all of them, we're going to be doing some reading. So I wanted to warn people up front. I understand people have short attention spans today for whatever reason. So I would beg them to bear with us during the course of these next 2 or 3 broadcasts because I'm going to do a bit of reading here. So let me begin by reading from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette from November 6th of 2015, last year, regarding the military exercises at football games. On field, this is by Paula Reed Ward of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. On-field events recognizing military service members, including ceremonial first pitches, honor guards, and jumbotron tributes, have become common at professional sports venues over the past several years. Many in the stands assume the team or league puts on the tributes, but often it has been the Department of Defense, meaning tax dollars were used to foot the bill. A report released Wednesday criticized the Department of Defense for spending millions in sports marketing contracts and called to task the professional sports teams that took the money, saying they were engaged in paid patriotism, quote unquote. Prepared by U.S. Senators John McCain and Jeff Flake, both Arizona Republicans, the report found that all military branches reported spending $53 million on marketing and advertising contracts with professional sports organizations between 2012 and 2015. More than $10 million of that went to the NFL, Major League Baseball, the National Hockey League, the National Basketball Association, and Major League Soccer. Quote, oh no, I'm not going to read that. Since reports on the contracts first came to light last spring, the Defense Department has banned the practice, and the NFL has called on its teams to stop taking payments for such activities. A September 14th memo from the Undersecretary of Defense office said a review of sports marketing and advertising contracts revealed, quote, some areas of concern, unquote, that, quote, could give rise to the perception that the department had paid for patriotism. New interim rules require the service not to pay as part of any contract to honor armed forces personnel, including playing the national anthem, color guard, demonstrations or enlistment ceremonies. And since this is a Pittsburgh, the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette article, they're highlighting what the Steelers think about all this. Okay, so Steelers spokesman Bert Lawton says he believes the Senate report mischaracterizes the team's relationship with the military. Quote, "The advertising and promotion the military does with the Steelers to advance its recruiting efforts has no connection to the programs the Steelers have that provide an opportunity for our fans to salute our military veterans and active service members," he said. The Pirates, the Pittsburgh Pirates baseball team, received $18,000 from the U.S. Air Force in fiscal year 2014, which included an Air Force performance of the national anthem, an on-field swearing in for the delayed entry program, as well as 250 game tickets for members and their families and friends. According to Brian Warecki, a Pirate spokesman, the contract also gave the Air Force the right to set up a booth for recruiting on Federal Street for 6 games and to present the colors at several games. Quote, "Our small marketing partnership agreement with the Air Force is consistent with similar agreements with the organizations looking to engage with the thousands of fans who attend Pirates games and is insignificant in relation to our support of the military," Mr. Warecki said. He listed a number of military appreciation events hosted by the Pittsburgh Pirates throughout the year, including every Thursday home game. The team also donated raffle proceeds to military and veterans charity programs and raised funds for veterans programs at Pirate Fest, as well as giving away tickets. In short, the Pirates and Pirates charities are meaningful supporters of the military and honor, recognize, and contribute to its causes in very real and significant ways, and all outside of any marketing partnership, Mr. Warecki said. Now, I would respond to Mr. Warecki by saying this, Bill. If that's true, if you want to honor the military organically, without having any financial contract with the military, and even though it seems it's only $18,000 from the U.S. Air Force, then don't take the $18,000 from the Air Force. Don't take a penny from the military. Okay, you come up with your own program or programs to honor whatever military branch you want to honor at any time you want to honor them, on any night you want to honor them. Not receiving any money from the military, which is actually from the United States taxpayers. So you can't defend yourself here, Mr. Warecki, from the Pittsburgh Pirates, okay? Because you took $18,000. So, if you want to honor the military, do it at the expense of the Pittsburgh Pirates.
Right.
Was that really so hard, Bill?
It's not. I have an update to this, Joe.
Go ahead.
When you had sent this to me, I guess about a week back, and I did some research into it and looked into what was going on regarding this, and just a day or so ago I found this article that was published May the 20th, so 2 days ago.
Yeah.
And this is from Fox Sports. The NFL to return more than $723,000 it improperly used for military tribute. And the article goes on to state that the NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell said on Thursday, the 20th, that the league would return more than $723,000 of taxpayer money to the government. Money that had been paid to NFL teams for sponsored military tributes over the past 4 seasons. Goodell informed Senators Flake and McCain of this decision in a letter on Wednesday. And here's the letter from Roger Goodell. In response to indications that some payments intended for recruitment advertising and marketing were used for activities honoring troops, I directed that an audit be conducted on all contracts between the NFL and the military. This audit involved not only reviewing the contracts mentioned in your report, but many others as well, totaling over 100 agreements covering 4 National Football League seasons from 2012 through 2015. In assessing whether a payment could be construed as being made for honoring the troops rather than for the recruitment activity, the auditors erred on the side of inclusion rather than exclusion of any payment that might fall into the category. On this basis, the audit identified $723,734 over 4 seasons that may have been mistakenly applied to, quote, appreciation activities rather than recruitment effort. This amount will promptly be returned to the United States taxpayers. In closing, Goodell noted that the NFL will take steps that such mistakes will not happen in the future. He said, in order to ensure that military appreciation activities remain separate from military recruitment efforts, the NFL will include an assessment of marketing contracts in regular internal audit reviews going forward, with specific focus on compliance with current Defense Department guidance. And you know what I say to that, Joe? You're full of it, Roger Goodell. You are full of it. Because there is no doubt that this money was not given so that it would be shown how great it would be to join the military or for, quote, recruitment. This was exactly for getting people to worship the military.
Exactly.
And you know what, Joe? And you know about this. I sat in Allentown, Pennsylvania at a minor league hockey game where they paraded out 5 guys, 5 local heroes from the Allentown, Pennsylvania area. And the crowd stood and they applauded, and the music was going, and they were doing the waving and everything. And I just sat in my seat, and Joe, I was almost physically attacked because I did not stand up and join in the worship of the military.
Right.
So Roger Goodell, shame on you.
Bill, you're absolutely right in that it is ultimately propaganda, and there were no mistakes made by the NFL or the military. It was a calculated move on both parts, and I would say that you should not take anything at all, Mr. Roger Goodell or Mr. and Mrs. NFL owner of any NFL franchise. If you don't want to come under scrutiny later on down the road, don't take anything from any military branch. Don't be phony, because you've been phony up until now when everybody stands and they cheer and you have the military flyovers and everybody thinks that, wow, doesn't the NFL care about the military? And look how they honor their heroes, their hometown heroes. Well, it's all a bunch of bull, okay? Yes. And you know what, Bill? The thing that ticks me off more than anything is that not many people are going to hear what we're saying right now. Not many people are aware when they sit in those NFL stadiums or they sit in front of a television and they watch an NFL game and they see all of this military crap that goes on, and they think that, wow, man, aren't these NFL teams patriotic? Well, it's all a bunch of crap.
Yep.
And that's what we're trying to expose right here and right now. And what, Bill, did you say that the NFL, Roger Goodell has said that the NFL will agree to pay back to the NFL tax, to the United States taxpayers?
Well, it says here that the Department of Defense gave $5.4 million to the NFL, to 14 NFL teams. It says. So out of the $5.4 million, they're returning $723,000, because supposedly that $723,000 was not used for recruitment purpose.
Well, regardless, Bill, what does entertainment have to do with recruitment for the military?
It has absolutely nothing to do with it.
It should have nothing to do with recruitment for the military. Okay, they have their own offices, they have their own budget for recruitment, for their own propaganda, and what they've chosen to do, and what the NFL and other sports outlets have chosen to do, is allow this propaganda to be spread to their sports, so that I, as someone who works his ass off to get to a point where he just wants to sit down and watch a football game, I have to be subjected to this nonsense. And Bill, let me add this as well. Okay? I don't even want the national anthem. And, call me extreme if you want. You know what? I don't really care. I don't want the national anthem played at a sports event. I don't want anything regarding national pride played at a sports event. All I want is to see and participate in the activity, okay? Because I don't agree with America, okay? I don't agree, and I'm not the only one. So why would you exclude me? And Bill, this is why I do not go to professional sports games anymore. People have offered me tickets. I don't go. I don't go to minor league events because they all play the national anthem. Okay? Just let me go and watch the ball game. I don't want to stand and take off my hat, because I don't honor the United States of America with its abominations that it supports. Okay? So just let me enjoy entertainment for what it is. When I go to see a movie, they don't make me stand in the movie theater and listen to the national anthem before I watch a movie. If I go watch a concert, they don't make me stand before I go watch the Moody Blues or Pink Floyd or you name the group. They don't play the national anthem before I watch. So why do I have to do it when I go to watch a professional sporting event or a minor league sporting event? Just end this nonsense right here, right now. Okay? So I'm going to end here, Bill, by reading this Deadspin, this article quickly from Deadspin, which is going to highlight the teams, the NFL teams that took the most money to quote-unquote honor the military. Yeah, you guys really honor the military when you're paid to honor it, okay? Don't give me that crap. Bill, it's the disingenuous nature of all of this that really ticks me off more than anything, okay?
Yeah.
Don't stand there, Mr. Quarterback, with your hand on your heart and watching the flyovers. Don't stand there, Mr. Owner or Mr. Fan. Really. Because it's all phony. If you want to honor the military, do it on your own time. Do it in your own venue. Don't intrude on my space and my time, because I don't do it to you. I don't force my views on you. You choose to come and listen to this program right here and right now. Here's the Deadspin article, Bill. This is from Barry Pacheski from November of last year. Senate investigators report that the Department of Defense has spent more than $9 million over the last 4 years on military tributes at sporting events, carefully staged patriotic displays meant to drum up goodwill and recruiting that weren't publicly disclosed as paid advertisements. If you've gone to games or watched TV, you've been exposed to these ads. They take familiar forms, giant American flags, military family reunions, the singing of God Bless America at baseball games, even things as seemingly minor as showing troops on the Jumbotron for a round of applause. Senator Jeff Flake revealed the practice earlier this year, and now Flake and fellow Arizona Republican John McCain have obtained 122 different contracts between the Pentagon and individual teams and leagues. And Bill, these 10 teams were paid the most for their salutes to the troops. So let's all stand and honor these teams as they were paid to honor the troops. The Atlanta Falcons were paid, Bill, $879,000. Thank you so much, Atlanta Falcons, and Arthur Blank, the owner of all Home Depot stores, for your wonderful honoring of our military. The New England Patriots, thank you so much, Mr. Kraft, and your New England Patriots for your patriotism, which cost $700,000 to the United States taxpayers. The Buffalo Bills, $650,000. The Minnesota Wilds, this is the NBA, $570,000. The Baltimore Ravens, NFL, $534,500. The New Orleans Saints, the NFL, $472,875. The San Diego Chargers, $453,000. $453,500. The Seattle Seahawks, the NFL, $453,500. The Atlanta Braves, that's Major League Baseball, $450,000. The Indianapolis Colts, $420,000. That's the NFL. So that's the top 10, Bill.
Mm-hmm.
While the spending is largely on events at NFL games, there were contracts with teams from all major sports, as well as Major League Soccer, auto racing, and college football. Of course, these amounts are a drop in the bucket for the military, which is an estimated budget of $600 billion in 2015, and only a slightly larger splash for the teams taking in the money. But people deserve to know, listen to this, Bill. People deserve to know when advertisements are advertisements, and that sports leagues are eagerly trumpet their patriotism, are making sure they get some cash for their efforts. Mm-hmm. And here from the report, Bill, quote, unsuspecting audience members became the subjects of paid marketing campaigns rather than simply bearing witness to teams' authentic voluntary shows of support the brave men and women who wear our nation's uniform. It is hard to understand how a team accepting taxpayer funds to sponsor a military appreciation game or to recognize wounded warriors or returning troops can be construed as anything other than paid patriotism. Since the reveal of the business agreements, the Pentagon has quietly backed away. A September memo warned the branches of the military that they should, quote, neither fund nor approve any sports marketing or sports-related contract in which the terms of the contract require the service to pay to honor members of the armed services, unquote. Now, Bill, here is the bottom line in all of this, okay, for those listening to this program right here and right now. The next time you go to a sporting event, whether it's Major League, whether it's the NFL or Major League Baseball or NHL or the NBA, or whether it's the minor league affiliates of any of those major league teams, you would have to wonder, what am I watching here? Oh, this looks nice. This military guy that came back from Afghanistan or Iraq, looks wonderful. You would have to wonder, is this being paid for, or is this organic?
Yeah.
Is this actually the team honoring this person or this branch of the military, or is it a result of a financial agreement between the military and that team? So, the bottom line is this, Bill. You have to question what you see. And that's how we started this program. Question what you see. Don't just blindly say, oh, wow, what a great show of USA pride. Incredible. Look at the size of that flag. It's the whole field. Well, you know what? Maybe your tax dollars paid for that flag.
Yeah.
And not the owner of your football team or your baseball team or your hockey team or your basketball team. But you know what, Bill? Most people don't even know this stuff.
No.
But this is why we do these programs. Hopefully those who hear what we're saying now will share it with other people, because that's how this works.
Yep.
We do the research. We put together these stories, and we hope that those who listen to us care enough to share it with other people who will share it with other people, and on and on and on to get the truth out.
Yeah. Two more things, Joe, before you move on to the next.
Sure.
First off, Congress controls the purse strings, do they not?
They do.
Okay. So for Senator Flake and for Senator McCain to take taxpayer money and to arrange contracts. Now, I would have to question, and I didn't do any research into this, but I intend to. I would have to question if those two gentlemen went before Congress, went before the Senate, and then Senate to the House for the, what do you call it, Joe?
For the appropriation?
For the appropriation, thank you. For the appropriation of this money for these activities.
Right.
How did this go down? That's what I want to know. Number one. And because, you know what, Joe? We have misfeasance of taxpayer money here. Total misfeasance.
You think so?
Yeah. All right. And the second thing, Joe. You know what the Department of Defense ought to do with $53 million, Joe? Is take care of the veterans who have already fought in how many wars and who have to go and spend hours upon hours at military hospitals waiting to be seen.
Right.
You know?
Right.
No, you're going to take money and give it to NFL teams and to Major League Baseball teams and so on and so forth. It makes me sick, Joe.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more. Yeah. How often do we hear stories of veterans of past wars who suffer physical and mental effects of what they've endured?
Yeah.
And how much better could this money be spent on caring for them rather than paying multi-billionaire owners of entertainment franchises in all of the major sports in this country. Great point, Bill. And let me add this as well. What we're exposing tonight in this fraud of major sports financial contracts with the military, why in the world was this not a major story?
I never heard one.
Why in the world was this not a major story? And Bill, you and I are two individuals among many who keep a watch on the news that is breaking and the news that scrolls across our televisions and our comes across our radios and we see in print and in magazines. How in the world was this not a major story? Well, I can answer my own question, because they don't want it to be a major story.
Exactly.
Because it would cause people to start thinking about how they've been deceived.
Yep.
And if that were to happen, people would start thinking about, perhaps we've been deceived in other areas as well. So the last thing that these evil individuals want to have happen is for people to start thinking about, and that's how we know the media is controlled, because when you hear stories about Kim Kardashian and Kobe Bryant and what the latest movies are that are coming out and all of the car dealerships that are available in your area, this is how we know that the media is controlled, that real news has to be searched for. And this is real news that what we're bringing out tonight.
Couldn't agree with you more, Joe.
Okay, so let me end by this, Bill.
Yeah.
Let me end by, and I said this earlier. I am calling for this. You know, in the Constitution we have a separation of church and state.
Right.
And government shall make no law regarding the establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. That's the First Amendment, right?
Yep.
Okay, so let me issue this suggestion to whoever would want to take it into consideration. Okay, let's have a separation of sports and state. How about that? How about a separation of sports and state? Okay, when I sit down and watch a Phillies game here or an Eagles game, you know what? Don't tell me about the United States, okay? Because the owner of the Phillies and the owner of the Eagles or the 76ers or the Philadelphia Flyers in our local sports team, they really have no affiliation with the military, and they have no vested interest in perpetuating the military, Bill. They just got paid for pretending to honor the military. Okay, so when I, as an entertainment consumer, want to sit down and watch a movie, I'm not subjected to the national anthem, right? If I want to watch something on Netflix, I'm not subjected to the national anthem. If I go to the Philadelphia Museum of Art, they don't require me to stand outside and listen to the national anthem before I go inside. If I go to a national park, they don't require me to listen to the national anthem before I go and enter that national park or state park. So why am I subjected to the national anthem when I sit down and watch a baseball game or a football game or a hockey match or a basketball match? That's a simple question, really. Why do you choose to subject me to state agreement by standing and listening to this nonsense before I watch a baseball game or a football game? So let's have a separation of sports and state from now on, okay? Because not everybody that goes to the stadium or not everybody that watches the game on television agrees with the policies of the United States, okay? Many of them are in vociferous and diametric opposition to the state, okay? So don't subject me to it. Let me just watch your football team and your baseball team without being exposed to military propaganda, please. And if you choose not to, then you can say goodbye to me. And you can welcome all of the zombies that want to stand up and take their hats off, okay? And think that they're doing the right thing. Let's honor the military, okay? Baloney. You want to honor the military? I'll tell you what. You, instead of going to a Phillies game or an Eagles game and taking your hat off during the national anthem, why don't you find out where your local veterans hospital is and go volunteer to change bedpans for these guys that have no legs and no arms.
There you go.
You want to honor your military? You do it that way. Find out where your local veterans hospital is and go volunteer your time. You know, because taking your hat off at some stupid baseball game isn't honoring the military.
Amen, Joe.
It's crazy, Bill.
It is.
Crazy. You want to move on?
Yeah, let's go.
What time do we have here? We're going to go 2 hours, brother. We got another hour.
Yep.
Next up in the news, Bill. Here's another news item. Here's another news item that isn't going to be heard on mainstream media. It isn't going to be discussed on mainstream outlets because they don't want attention to be drawn to the subject matter. And the subject matter that I'm referring to is the lawsuit that Florida Atlantic University professor of media and communications, James Tracy, has filed in his defense for the firing that he has suffered as a result of his position on what we have come to know as false flags or false events, Bill, that the media has portrayed as real events. And in reality, as you research them and look into the details, you will come to the conclusion that they could not have possibly happened as they were presented as having happened in the mainstream media. And we're referring to events such as 9/11, events such as Sandy Hook, Newtown, Connecticut, events such as Boston Marathon bombing, 2013, events such as the Charleston church shooting, events such as the Virginia on-air shooting of the two media correspondents, events such as the San Bernardino 2015 shooting of last year. When you do the research, you look at the logistics and you look at it cognitively and logically, you will come to the conclusion that at the very least, Bill, that there are very suspicious circumstances surrounding all of these events. Mm-hmm. So as a result of Jim Tracy's position on Sandy Hook, I believe firmly, as well as many others do, that he was fired from his position as professor of media and communications at the Florida Atlantic University. Now they have used a technical, their reasoning is technical, that the firing of Jim Tracy, it has to do with his not filing a required form by the university, by Florida Atlantic University, to submit outside activities that may contradict the program that is Florida Atlantic University. And before we actually get into this, full disclosure, we had intended on producing an entire program on Jim Tracy's firing, and we extended a personal invite to him. But the facts of this ongoing story were overarched by overarched by my personal involvements and feelings. So while Jim Tracy has not responded to my request for an interview, I will continue to defend his position and, in essence, defend overall the position of Sandy Hook researchers that it was a fake event of December 12th, December 14th of 2012. So this article appeared, Bill, in Newsweek regarding Jim Tracy's lawsuit against Florida Atlantic University and also the union that was supposed to represent him in this matter. Former Florida Atlantic University faculty member James Tracy, who is widely considered a quote-unquote Sandy Hook truther, filed a wrongful termination lawsuit on Monday, months after losing his teaching job. Okay, and this article is from, let's see, actually I don't have the actual, wait a minute, I should have it. Yeah, April 26th of 2016. April 26, 2016. Tracy is known as one of several conspiracy theorists who believe that the 2012 mass shooting at Sandy Hook Elementary School in Newtown, Connecticut, during which Adam Lanza killed 20 children and 6 adult staff members, is a hoax. Who, until January, was a tenured associate professor in communication in the communication school at Florida Atlantic University, and has blogged about theories related to the shooting on his website, Memory Hole. Now, I'll stop at this point. The author of this article, whose name is Max Kuttner, refers to Tracy as one of several conspiracy theorists. Now, Mr. Kuttner is either living in a cave or he is willfully ignorant, and I believe it's the latter, of the thousands upon thousands of bloggers and researchers who have, at the very least, established suspicion regarding the Sandy Hook event of 12/14/12, if not outright calling it a hoax or a staged event. So Mr. Kuttner is really being disingenuous here, and it is a red flag that should go up if you are a serious journalist in suspecting Mr. Kuttner of having an agenda, which I believe certainly that he does. Let me go on to read this, Bill. Veronique and Lenny Posner, whose 6-year-old son Noah was killed in the Sandy Hook massacre, blamed the attention Tracy was receiving for his theories on his connection to Florida Atlantic University and called for the university to do more than reprimand him in an article published in South Florida's Sun Sentinel newspaper in December. Quote, "When do the interests of the college and its students take precedence over the tenure of a professor who has clearly proven himself in violation of the university's own policy," they wrote. Now, I would respond to the Posners, Bill, by asking them if have they established that they are completely aware and familiar with Florida Atlantic University policy to make such an indicting statement?
Mm. Good question.
Now, let me also add this, Bill. As the positives called for the university to do more than reprimand him, and let me add this, that there have been a number of other publications that have called for the firing of Jim Tracy as a result of his positions. I guess you want to call it for lack of a better term, the handbook or the rules that Florida Atlantic University are to abide by as far as their own doctrine. They are not to allow outside sources to influence or force them to fire or reprimand any of their employees, not even to mention a tenured employee such as Jim Tracy. In other words, the decision to release or reprimand or discipline any of the employees of Florida Atlantic University are to come from within, not from without. And it is clear as a result of Jim Tracy's firing that the pressure on Florida Atlantic University to dismiss him outright has overwhelmed them, and as a result, they got rid of this man who has spoken his mind, and his memory hole blog, as he has asserted time and time again, has no affiliation with Florida Atlantic University. You know, it's like you work for the company that you work for, Bill, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Does Answers for the Paranormal have anything to do, or does it any way affect or reflect the company that you work for?
No.
In the same way, neither does the Memory Hole blog have any effect, or should it have any effect, on the university that Jim Tracy works for. Now, the problem is that the university wants to know what outside activities Mr. Tracy and other employees of FAU are involved in that may conflict with the policies of Florida Atlantic University. Now, this is a matter for the union to take up and to defend the employees of FAU, which they have, in my opinion, betrayed Mr. Tracy.
Right.
So, as it stands now, Mr. Tracy has filed a lawsuit against Florida Atlantic University and the union that is supposed to represent him for the firing. And let me continue to read here, Bill. Days after the article ran, FAU announced it had notified Tracy of its intent to terminate his contract. Tracy's faculty union mandated such notice, the university said at the time. The termination went through on January 6th. Tracy's lawsuit names as defendants the university's board of trustees, several board members, and university administrators. The union's Florida Education Association and United Faculty of Florida, and two people affiliated with the latter union. The lawsuit alleges that the university violated Tracy's right to due process, free speech, and academic freedom. Tracy taught at Florida Atlantic University for more than a decade, according to the complaint. It alleges that the defendants knew about Tracy's website and that he clearly distinguished the website from his role at the school. Quote, Professor Tracy's academic freedom and constitutionally protected speech included reporting about the incomplete national media coverage of the Newtown incident and how it continues to be used by politicians, legislators, lobbyists to promote and install irrational and unconstitutional reforms, the lawsuit says. The lawsuit mentions the Positive Sun Sentinel article and similar ones, alleging that after their publication, university officials began strategizing how they could use the public controversy surrounding Professor Tracy to discipline and perhaps fire him. Union representatives apparently assured Tracy that his blogging was protected as free speech and allegedly told him not to include his website on the university quote-unquote outside activities disclosure, according to the complaint. FAU later demanded that he disclose the website. When he refused, the university cited his refusal as the reason for its intent to terminate his employment. His union, quote-unquote, failed to file a grievance following the notice. The lawsuit alleges, and the university finalized his firing. The suit calls for the court to declare the quote-unquote outside activities policy unconstitutional, reinstate Tracy at FAU, and grant him compensatory and punitive damages as well as other relief. Quote, in my opinion, this is pretty much a frivolous lawsuit, at least aimed at us, Marshall Ogletree, the interim executive director of the United Faculty of Florida, a union named in the lawsuit, tells Newsweek. He says the union planned to file a grievance on behalf of Tracy, but then, quote, we withdrew our support for him because he wasn't dealing with the case as we advised him to. Ogletree adds, I don't feel like the union did anything incorrect. We did everything we could to represent him in a proper manner, and when you don't take the advice of your counsel, we had no other option. Well, I would disagree with that vehemently, Bill. Mm-hmm. You represent your client vehemently. Whatever your client suggests to you, you take and you adapt it to your defense of your client. You do not drop your client as this union did with Mr. Tracy. You don't make that determination that we don't agree with your position, so we're not going to defend you. Your position as the union is to defend those who have been wrongfully fired, whether you agree with them or not. You go in and you defend your client because that's why you exist. You don't make discretionary moves like he doesn't take in our counsel, so we're not going to defend him. His views are different than ours, so we're not going to defend him. What sort of defense is that? What sort of union is that? Bill?
I'm here.
Oh, boy. Here we go.
Yes, Joe. Joe, can you hear me? Joe, you there?
Bill?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me? Joe, can you hear me?
Hello, Bill?
Yeah, I can hear you, Joe. Can you hear me?
Wow. Bill?
Joe, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Are we on the air?
Yeah, you're on.
Okay, when did I drop off?
You never did.
Well, that's good. I lost you within the last couple minutes or so.
Yeah, you were calling me, and I was saying I'm here, but you weren't answering, so I don't know.
Well,
what was going on.
I wasn't calling you, actually.
No, I'm saying you were saying, Bill, you're there, and so I'm right here.
Oh,
Joe.
okay. Well, what's the last thing that I said? What did you hear me say last?
The last thing that you said was regarding how you can not defend the client, in this case, James Tracy, vehemently.
Right. Okay. All right. So then we're up to date.
Yeah.
I mean that's. I don't know how it got disconnected like that.
I don't either.
Okay. When I stop talking, I know that you're going to come on within a second or two.
Right.
And when you don't, then I know that we've been dropped somehow. So, I mean, well, be that as it may, here we are now. So, that's my position on, Jim Tracy's lawsuit. Bill, the bottom line is that since the Sandy Hook event, not long after Jim Tracy's website, Memory Hole blog, really took off, and there were many really, really sincere researchers that contributed to that website, and I consider myself among those serious researchers. And I'm sure that many, many became aware of Jim Tracy and his Memory Hole blog as a result of Anderson Cooper's expose of Jim Tracy.
Yeah.
Not long after the Sandy Hook event. So he's been under the microscope for a long time, and I'm sure as are many of the contributors to his Memory Hole blog. So this has nothing to do with any insubordination within the policy of Florida Atlantic University. This really has everything to do with Jim's position that the Sandy Hook event was, at the very least, the media was irresponsible in the reporting on that day.
Yeah.
At the very least. At the worst, they were complicit in a staged event to promote several different agendas. So Jim Tracy's firing had to do with that, not with any technical insubordination that he failed to live up to within Florida Atlantic University policy. Yeah. And as time goes on, Bill, we're going to keep people abreast of the progression of this lawsuit. And, I never had a doubt that it wasn't going to be national news. It's funny that Jim Tracy makes national news for questioning the reporting of that day in Newtown, but his defense of himself doesn't make national news. Like, Anderson Cooper is nowhere to be found on this because he's a coward. Like all other major news broadcasters are cowards as well.
Yeah. And here's one other thing that needs to be thought about regarding this, Joe, is that I'm sure FAU was under incredible pressure following that story that was run on CNN by Anderson Cooper, and and it seemed as though they were going to stand behind Tracy as far as whatever his viewpoints were part of free speech, and you know, what was his title at the university, Joe? Was it media?
Media and communications.
Media and communications. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, his questioning the official story as reported from media sources certainly fell within his teaching acumen.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, you know, I'm sure that if they really wanted to stand behind him, they could have. But the pressure, and we have to wonder where this came from, and we can only surmise that the amount of money that was given to not only the Posners but to other families of Sandy Hook, you know, part of that was used in a way to attack him and to cause Florida Atlantic to finally succumb. Because I don't believe for 1 second that it was any inappropriate behavior on his part. They were certainly well aware of his blog, of his Facebook page, so on and so forth. So, you know,
no question.
I don't think Tracy, you know, that it should surprise anybody that Tracy would come out with a lawsuit against the university because of this. Because you know, it just smells of evil doing in regards to his firing.
Bill, there's no question about that. Let me add this as well. There are so many astonishing aspects to this story. In my mind, first and foremost is, how is it possible? How is it possible that there is only one person in the position of media and communications that has questioned the reportage of Sandy Hook on that day? Florida Atlantic University receives federal funds. All universities receive federal funding. So that's one of the reasons that Florida Atlantic University is succumbing to the pressure, has succumbed to the pressure that was laid on them by external forces. First and foremost probably is that of the federal government to shut this man up.
Yeah.
Don't give him a platform anymore, or you will lose your federal funding.
Yeah.
Okay. The other thing is this, Bill. How many other colleges and universities have a department that is directly related to what Tracy was doing at Florida Atlantic University? How many colleges and universities are there in this country that have a media and communications course at their college or university?
Yeah.
And you're trying to tell me that only Jim Tracy in this one university in Florida, he's the only one who questioned the shoddy reporting both on that day and afterwards from Newtown. That's impossible. It's absolutely impossible. So Jim Tracy is either a complete idiot for raising his voice in opposition to this, in questioning Sandy Hook, as we would all be who question Sandy Hook and other false flags, or there is a program in place, Bill, to silence anyone who would question these events as remarkably foolish as they are in their reporting, as remarkably unbelievable and impossible as they are when you do the research. Now, we don't have the time right now. We've done it in the past. For those listening, if you want to look into Sandy Hook or the Boston Marathon bombing or the Charleston shooting, you will inevitably come up upon things that don't make sense at the very least, very suspicious, and are completely impossible to believe when you delve into the stories and you listen to the testimonies, to the eyewitness testimony of those that were involved, since there were never any court cases involved in any of these. So what this all comes down to, Bill, is that there's one man that has stood up and has had the courage to question the official narrative, and as a result, has paid the price with his job. He doesn't.
Yeah.
He's no longer employed. So, as this goes forward, we're going to keep an eye on whether this, as our court system exists, you have judges that determine whether it can go forward or not, whether the evidence is there to proceed or not. So we're going to keep an eye on this and keep our listeners updated, Bill, because this is a fascinating element of this whole Sandy Hook story, which is not being. I've not heard any of this on national news. You have to do a search for it on the internet as far as this lawsuit by Jim Tracy. So we're going to stay on top of it, and we're going to keep our listeners updated as to the specifics of it.
Right. All right, Joe. Next up, we want to talk about a local Philadelphia area story that has come out, and you found an interesting twist to this Philadelphia soda tax story.
Right. A little background on what this story is about. Bill and I live in the Philadelphia area. We live in the suburbs, and we're not directly affected by laws that are passed within the jurisdiction of Philadelphia, but we certainly hear about them. In the same way that anybody who lives in the San Francisco area would hear about laws that are being passed in San Francisco, or anybody in Phoenix, in the Phoenix area, in the suburbs of Phoenix, would hear about things that are going on in the Phoenix jurisdictional area. So what has occurred in the last half a year to a year is this push for a soda tax, a sugary drinks tax in the Philadelphia municipality. The recently installed mayor of Philadelphia, Jim Kenney, has pushed for a 3-cent per ounce tax on sugary drinks, which would include sodas and anything that has a sugar additive to it. And, the reasoning for this, according to what I've been reading, is, allegedly this concern for the health of those who consume sugary drinks in the Philadelphia area, that, it's a health concern, and that the installation of this tax would cut down on the consumption of sugary drinks, which would in turn cut down on obesity, which would in turn cut down on taxpayer funding of money that's spent on caring for those who have these infirmities that are as a result of consuming these sugary drinks. And it really gets into a convoluted reasoning. So in my research of this, Bill, we brought this up before on I think it was our last broadcast that we brought it up on, and that we told our listeners that we would be keeping an eye on this story and how it progressed.
Mm-hmm.
Lo and behold, as I'm doing research on this, the way that politics works is no different than the way our commercial system is set up. The more money that you have to spend, the more likelihood that you will succeed in what you want to succeed in. And so, Mr. Kenny, the mayor of Philadelphia, wants to succeed in installing this 3 cents per ounce drink, a tax on sugary drinks in Philadelphia, which would make the tax itself more costly than the drink.
Mm-hmm.
If you think of a 20-ounce bottle of soda, 20 times 3 cents is what? It's 60 cents. If the drink itself is 75 cents, you add 60 cents onto that. It's either more expensive than the drink itself, or it adds considerably to the cost of the beverage itself. It's absolutely absurd to even consider. And I submitted, I think of our last program, that even suggesting this tax, Mr. Kenny should have been removed forcibly from office.
Mm-hmm.
There should have been officers that came in when he said that and escorted him out to the nearest mental institution, because to me, he's mentally deficient in even suggesting such a tax. And as I continue to research this, Bill, I find that Michael Bloomberg, the former mayor of the city of New York, is funding the campaign for the Philadelphia soda tax. Now, the first thing that I thought when I saw this headline was, what in the world does Michael Bloomberg have to do with this? Why would he be concerned with this at all? What business is it of his not being a resident of the city of Philadelphia, or not being an elected official in the city of Philadelphia? And so, Mr. Bloomberg is captured in this article on May 3rd, 2016, this month, Bill. And let me read this article here. Billionaire philanthropist and former New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg will reportedly provide financial support for the growing campaign to introduce a sugary drinks tax in Philadelphia. And this is from the Philly Voice staff bill by Michael Tannenbaum of the Philly Voice staff. So I'm not making this up. Bloomberg, a staunch advocate for public health policy, will dedicate his vast resources to the nonprofit Philadelphians for a Fair Future, which supports Mayor Kenny's proposal to tax all beverages with added caloric sweeteners by 3 cents per ounce, according to the Philadelphia Inquirer. On Thursday, Philadelphians for a Fair Future will embark on an $825,000 ad campaign in support of the tax, which Mayor Kenny says will raise an additional $95 million in annual tax revenue to support a range of public initiatives, from universal pre-K and community schools to parks and library improvements. So let me stop there, Bill. Okay, so if your reasoning for wanting to install this 3 cents per ounce tax on sugary drinks was benevolent. It was altruistic. You wanted to watch out for the health of Philadelphians.
Mm-hmm.
Then why are you considering? Why in this article is it indicating that the money raised from this tax would support a range of public initiatives from universal pre-K and community schools to parks and library improvements? So, bottom line in my mind is you want to raise more taxes. You want to install another tax on what is already existing to fund your universal pre-K and your parks and recreations and all this and all that. So don't tell me that you're worried about my health when really what you want to do is fund your pet programs.
That's right.
And to add to that, you already collect enough taxes to take care of universal pre-K if you want to do that, and community schools if you want to do that, and parks if you want to do that, and library improvements if you want to do that. Just stop taking taxpayers' money and spending it on other things that shouldn't be spent on, like building the Phillies a baseball stadium, and building the Eagles a football stadium, and building the soccer team a soccer stadium.
Right.
Take the tax money that you collect, that you confiscate, and use it to what really would benefit the public in your mind. Now, whether, universal pre-K and community schools and parks and library improvements are really a good use of taxpayer money that's debatable. That's debatable. But what is not debatable is this stupid, idiotic 3 cents per ounce tax on sugary drinks. Let me continue to read here, Bill. As mayor, Bloomberg fought for a New York City ban on the sale of sugary drinks larger than 16 ounces, a measure that bypassed City Council but was eventually shot down by the New York Court of Appeals. At the time, Bloomberg had imposed the ban by taking his proposal to the New York City Health Board, then led by Thomas Farley, Bill, who now serves as health commissioner in Philadelphia. Do we see a link there?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Farley. Philadelphia's soda tax debate has even drawn sharp lines in the 2016 Democratic presidential race, eliciting support from frontrunner Hillary Clinton and criticism from Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders, who called the proposal a, quote, regressive measure that will harm the city's poorest residents. Under Kenny's plan, 100% juice, milk, and zero-calorie drinks would not be affected by the tax. Wasn't that nice by Mr. Kenny? Okay. And isn't that nice also? Isn't that wonderful of Hillary Clinton to be so concerned about our health, Bill?
Oh, yeah.
It's really very touching. Very touching. But you know what, Hillary? If you're worried about sugary drinks, don't drink them yourself, because you don't seem to be the slimmest person in my mind. Okay? Nationally, only Berkeley, California, have successfully passed the soda tax at 1 penny per fluid ounce.
Yeah.
After, and get this, Bill, after Bloomberg provided millions of dollars of support for the initiative. Mexico's national tax on soda, passed in 2014, led to a 12% decline in soda sales and a 12% increase in the price of soda, though it isn't yet clear what effect the policy has had on the country's public health. So we have, Bill, at this present time, we have one sugary drink soda tax in this country, It is in Berkeley, California, and it was financed by Michael Bloomberg, the same person who was financing the attempt to install the 3 cents per ounce tax on sugar drinks in Philadelphia.
How about that?
You know what? You know what, folks? And I don't care that Mexico's national tax on soda has led to a decline in soda sales and a 12% increase in the price of soda. That's not for you to decide for me, folks, as elected officials, okay? Let me worry about my health, okay? If I want to go buy a ginger ale, let me go buy a ginger ale without having to worry about you adding tax to it. I'm responsible for my own health, not you. You're responsible to protect me, okay? Protect the borders and to provide for the infrastructure of this country, okay? Yeah. Outside of that, let me worry about my own health. You know, we already have this national health installed by Barack Obama. You guys are already doing enough. You're loving me so much. I can't take any more love from you guys. Okay, Mr. Kenny, your love, you know, for me is really very touching. But keep it to yourself. If you want to worry about health, worry about your health. Worry about your wife. Oh, he doesn't have a wife. He has a boyfriend. Mr. Kenny is a homosexual. Oh. Worry about your own friends and family. Okay. Let me worry about my health. And let me end this article here, Bill. Total amount of Bloomberg's personal contributions to the pro-soda tax campaign has not been disclosed. His donations have been joined by funding from the nonprofit Action Now initiative, an anti-obesity and health education organization led by Houston billionaires John and Laura Arnold. Huh. You know, again, they're not elected officials, they're just Houston billionaires, okay? It's real nice of you guys to worry about this anti-obesity stuff, you know. But I think there are enough ways for me to research health benefits for myself. People should be responsible for their own health, okay?
Yep.
Again, just worry about providing safe roads and safe intersections and safe bridges and safe borders. And worry about those things. Let me worry about my own health. Don't penalize me because I like ginger ale. If I live in Philadelphia and I'm going to pay for a 20-ounce ginger ale, I'm going to pay about $2 rather than $1. So this is the absurdity of this proposed legislation bill, and it's an example. It's an example of abuse of government that is overlooked in today's culture for whatever reason, because we're so predisposed to amusement and entertainment and distractions and fluff, and we don't pay attention to the stories that really affect our pockets. You know, we have fun with April 15th, called Tax Day, and, you know, we have all of these commercials about the IRS and how you can get right with the IRS. And, you know, people, stop and think about where your money is going. Yeah. It's your money. You work for it. It's taken from you. Why do you allow it to be taken from you? And look at what they're doing with your money when they take it from you.
Yeah.
Okay? It's none of the IRS's business what I do for a living, what I spend on tools, how many miles I drive per year, but I'm required as a private contractor to disclose all this to the IRS. Okay? It's none of your damn business. You don't do any work for me. I don't do any work for you. when I go to a store, install a consumption tax. When I go to the store, it's added to the price of the product to pay for, the roads and all these other things. But don't build stadiums with it. Don't give it to billionaire owners. Don't provide tax abatements for multi-billionaires so they move into your city so they don't have to pay taxes for 10 years. Bill, people have no clue. They have no clue how much they're raised.
No.
Financially. They have no clue whatsoever how much they're raised. They're so worried about who the Sixers are going to draft in next year's draft, and whether Sam Bradford's going to be the Eagles quarterback or it's going to be Carson Wentz, or whether the Flyers are going to make the playoffs next year, how good the Phillies are this year. And you can apply that to every city. Or what movie is coming out, how much money this movie made or that movie made. Folks, take some time. My goodness, take some time to look at what's going on around you, because you're getting pickpocketed by your government, and they're trying to tell you that it's a good thing. And there's nothing in the Constitution. I repeat, there's nothing in the Constitution that says that it's okay. Taxes are good. They're biblical. We're supposed to pay taxes. But there's nothing in the Bible, and there's nothing in the Constitution that says that it's okay to take from me and give to this person.
That's right.
That's where we are now, Bill. That's where we are now.
Yeah, that is where we are now, Joe, and it's only going to get worse. It's the old thing, Joe. 2 steps forward, 1 step back, but yet they've already got one more step, don't they? So, this advancement of taxing for different reasons. I saw something the other day, Joe, that really struck me. It was a picture of a couple in front of their computer screen, and the caption around it was, "We couldn't afford to get health insurance, so now the IRS is penalizing us $2,800. Do you get that? Because they couldn't buy Obamacare. They couldn't buy health insurance because it was too expensive. The government now wants to fine them because they didn't buy the insurance that they were made to purchase. How, home of the free and the brave, and sing the national anthem and all this, Joe, and what does the government turn around and do to you? It's like you said, Joe. People got to they got to wake up and look around and see what's going on, because there's not much freedom left. There's fascism and every other ism that's taking over the republic that this country was founded as.
And Bill, the thing is this, and we understand you work more hours than anybody I know. When I work the hours that I work, they come in bunches, and they wear me down physically and mentally. And my family pays a price for it as well. Our personal lives suffer because of the work schedules that we have.
Yeah.
We understand how busy people are. But at the same time, in our busyness, though, we take the time to keep watch to what's going on around us and how it affects our lives personally and how it affects people's lives generally. And we try to alert people as to what's going on around them. So I can't really use the excuse that people are too busy to really know what's going on. You have a responsibility. I don't care how many hours you work. You have a responsibility to yourself, to your family, and to your fellow citizens to hold public officials' feet to the fire, to hold them responsible, and to be aware of what laws are being passed, what ordinances are being approved, and to understand above all, Bill, what they're doing with your money. It's your money.
Mm.
Yes, we're supposed to pay taxes, but there's a limit to what we should be paying for. There's a limit to what government should be using our taxpayer money for. And what they've depended on is that people are just not paying attention, and that's paid off for them.
It has.
It's paid off also. It's paid off also for those private entities that are profiting from public funds. And I'm thinking off the top of my head of our sports teams, how they have had their playpens built for them. Who knows where else? You know, I focus on the money that was spent to build Citizens Bank Ballpark, the public money, and to build Lincoln Financial Field and the baseball and football stadiums out in Pittsburgh and the soccer stadiums around here, because we're from around here. Now, if they're abusing our money building private facilities for private corporations, where else are they abusing our money?
Right.
And you know, this I'm reminded of a book that what was his name?
Griffin?
I can't think of it now. I'll bring it up next time. You know, how Washington wastes from A to Z. Do you remember the author of that article, of that book, Bill? Why the book was called Washington Waste from A to Z.
Yeah, I can picture the guy, Joe. I can't think of his name.
Yeah. I have the book in my library. I can't think of his name right now, and this is a book that's maybe 25 years old.
Yeah.
You know, it's gotten worse. Okay.
It has.
So Washington waste from A to Z has expanded. And you can't use the excuse that you're too tired to know. You don't have enough time to know. You know, in my free time, Bill, the precious few hours that I get per week, you know, I have to divide them up between my family. I'm talking about the hours that I'm not at work or administrating my business. I have to divide these hours between leisure and family and the ministry that the Lord has called us to.
Yep.
So today I spent, I guess 4 hours preparing for tonight. Previously I spent, I guess at least 10 hours, Bill, preparing for tonight. So I hope that people take to heart what we're talking about and take these issues seriously, because you're not going to get seriousness in today's reporting. No. You're going to get a bunch of damn fluff, a bunch of crap. You're going to get Al Roker and Matt Lauer and the morning talking heads, Katie Couric. You're going to get them sitting around talking about the music awards that are coming up. And at the same time, you're going to have the stinking politicians having state politicians, local politicians, federal politicians sticking their hands in your pockets, taking your money out, and giving it to somebody else.
Yep.
So these are the things that we're going to keep an eye on as we continue with these next broadcasts, because we're almost out of time here.
Yeah, we are for tonight, and we'll continue with the second part of this series. We shoot for next Sunday again, Joe.
Yes, we'll shoot for that. I think Sunday is a good night for us to broadcast.
Yeah.
And Bill, as I'm looking at my notes here, I've got 15 issues that I want to get to, and let me just say that this is all leading up to a program that we want to do in the LGBTQQA, whatever, how many other letters you want to add to it. This agenda that is present in our culture today, that is pushing the homosexual agenda and the perverse agenda of transgenderism and cross-dressing and all the stuff that the Bible calls depravity. These things are being pushed on us as a culture from our government. It's being pushed on us from our media. We're being forced to swallow it. And you and I are two guys that are not swallowing it, Bill, and we're going to stand up against it. So that's basically what this program is leading up to. We're going to talk about this North Carolina House Bill 2, this so-called bathroom law. What I've discovered, Bill, is that the opponents of this law have not read the law itself. I have. I've printed it out. Mm-hmm. I've read it myself, and I'm going to elaborate on it and show that it is not really a big deal. And I'm going to offer a suggestion at the end of this series, how long we go on for this, Bill, for those who are LGBT people and anybody who wants to live any kind of a alternative lifestyle, a perverse lifestyle. You want your own bathrooms. I'm going to give you a way to handle that, rather than forcing me as a consumer, as a taxpayer, to worry about what I'm going to see when I go into a public bathroom. So I'm going to give you an option, okay? I think it's very fair.
Yeah, we look forward to that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So again, next Sunday, Memorial Day weekend, actually, Joe.
Yes.
May the 29th, 8 p.m., part 2 of our series of shows that we're titling Consuming Today's Propaganda, ? And we'll get into some more topics next week, all leading into what Joe was just talking about, the whole LGBTQA, AA, BCD agenda.
LMNOP, yeah.
So until next week, this is Bill for my partner Joe. We want to thank you for tuning in and listening tonight, and hope you'll tune in again on next Sunday for part 2. So with that, Joe, thanks for everything tonight. Have a great night, everyone, and we'll talk to you again next week.